Every morning at exactly 7:12 a.m. in a small town outside Ohio, people saw the same thing. A little boy in a faded blue hoodie stood alone at the old bus stop on Maple Street. Rain, snow, wind, it didn't matter. He was always there. At first, nobody paid much attention. In America, people get busy. They rush to work, grab coffee, drop kids off at school, and move on. But after weeks turned into months, the people in town started to notice something strange. The boy never got on a bus. He just stood there, every day, waiting. Some people thought he was waiting for a parent. Others assumed he was just a troubled kid from one of the nearby foster homes. A few even said maybe he had nowhere else to go. But no one ever stopped to ask, until one freezing morning in December. That morning, the temperature had dropped below 20 degrees. Snow was falling hard, and the wind cut through the streets like a blade. Most people were inside, wrapped in blankets, holding hot coffee, avoiding the cold. But there he was again, the same boy, same blue hoodie, same bus stop. That's when an older man named Walter Hayes noticed him. Walton was 68, a retired school janitor who had lived in that town his entire life. He had lost his wife 3 years earlier and spent most of his mornings walking to the local diner just to avoid the silence in his house. When he saw the boy shivering, he stopped. "Hey kid," Walter called gently, "you're gonna freeze out here." The boy looked up, startled, like he wasn't used to being spoken to. Walter stepped closer and held out a cup of hot chocolate from the diner down the street. The boy hesitated, then took it with both hands. "What are you waiting for?" Walter asked. The boy looked back down the empty road. And then he said something Walter would never forget. "My mom." Walter froze. The boy couldn't have been older than 10. "When's she coming?" Walter asked softly. The boy's eyes stayed locked on the road. "She said she'd come back on the bus." Walter's heart sank. "How long ago did she say that?" The boy finally looked at him. 2 years. Walter felt like the cold had suddenly disappeared because something heavier had hit him instead. The boy's name was Eli. 2 years earlier, his mother had been struggling badly. Bills, addiction, no family support. One day, she sat Eli down at that exact bus stop, kissed his forehead, and told him she was going to the city to fix everything. She promised him one thing: "Wait for me here. I'll come back on the bus. I promise." But she never came back. Eventually, Child Services found Eli and placed him in foster care. But every morning before school, he returned to that same bus stop. Because promises from mothers are different. Even when the whole world stops believing, a child doesn't. Walter stood there in silence, tears forming in his eyes. He had spent years grieving the people he lost, but this little boy? He was still grieving someone who might still be alive. From that day on, Walter changed his routine. Every morning at 7:12, he met Eli at the bus stop. Some days with hot chocolate, some days with gloves, some days with pancakes wrapped in foil. At first, they barely spoke. Then, slowly, they did. Walter told Eli stories about his wife, about growing up in the 1960s, about how he once got detention for putting a frog in his teacher's desk, and Eli laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in a long time. The town began noticing again, only now the boy wasn't alone. As Christmas got closer, Walter did something no one expected. He went to the town bulletin board, the local Facebook groups, and even contacted a small newspaper in Columbus. He posted one simple message: "A little boy has been waiting at a bus stop for 2 years because his mother promised she'd come back. If anyone knows her, tell her he's still waiting." The story spread faster than anyone imagined. Thousands shared it, then tens of thousands. People across America commented, cried, and searched. And then, 3 days before Christmas, Walter got a call. A woman in a rehab center 2 states away had seen the story. She was sobbing so hard the nurse could barely understand her. It was Eli's mother. She had fallen deep into addiction after leaving. Shame kept her away. Every month that passed made it harder to come back. She believed Eli would be better off without her. But when she saw the post and realized he had been waiting every day, she broke. On Christmas Eve, the town gathered quietly near the bus stop. Snow covered the sidewalks, the street was silent. Eli stood there beside Walter, hands shaking inside new winter gloves. Then, in the distance, a bus turned the corner. It pulled up slowly, the doors opened, and a woman stepped out. Thin, pale, crying before her feet even touched the ground. For 1 second, Eli didn't move, like his heart was afraid to believe what his eyes were seeing. Then she whispered, "Eli," and he ran, straight into her arms. People on the sidewalk cried openly. Walter turned away and wiped his face, but it was no use. The boy who had waited through rain, snow, and heartbreak was finally home. Later that night, as Christmas lights glowed across the town, Eli sat between his mother and Walter at the diner, and when the waitress asked Walter if he wanted his usual black coffee, he smiled and said, "No, tonight, make it 3 hot chocolates." Because sometimes the miracle isn't that someone comes back, it's that someone never stops waiting.